U.S. lawmakers are urging a probe of Wi-Fi router maker TP-Link. And this is over fears of Chinese cyber attacks. Now, one Republican and Democratic representative are asking reportedly the Commerce Department to investigate, the lawmakers noting vulnerabilities in TP-Link firmware and instances of its routers being exploited to target government officials in European countries. TP-Link was founded in China in 1996. The lawmakers' letter is a sign of mounting concerns that Beijing could exploit Chinese origin routers and other equipment in cyber attacks on American governments and businesses. But besides that, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage is holding close to its lowest level in more than a year. It's currently at 6.49%, and the rate on a 30-year mortgage is influenced by several factors, including by the rate on U.S. Treasuries. Now, home shoppers and homeowners are eager to refinance and have been encouraged as mortgage rates have eased back to their 14-month lows. Most economists expect that the average rate on a 30-year home loan to remain above 6% this year. And if rates ease further and the supply of homes on the market keeps rising, that could set the stage for improved sales in the coming months. And more good news for the U.S. economy. Initial jobless claims fell last week. This is for the second week in a row. The Labor Department says that there were an estimated 227,000 new claims for unemployment insurance. That's 7,000 less than the previous week. Now, jobless claims are a key indicator of layoff activity in the labor market. So despite trending higher in recent months, they remain below historical averages. And in the decade before the COVID pandemic, weekly jobless claims averaged 311,000. Okay, more economic data. U.S. retail sales unexpectedly surged in July, rising by a solid 1% from June. And that number exceeded economists' expectations, which were sitting at a 0.3% gain. Now, the Commerce Department released a figure earlier today. Retail sales, which are adjusted for seasonal swings, but not for inflation, it makes up a sizable chunk of overall spending. And July's reading is a boon for the U.S. economy because the country's economic growth hinges on Americans spending their dollars. Sales jumped across most categories. That's including car dealerships, electronics, and grocery stores. Walmart today reporting a 4.2% increase in sales last quarter, while some retailers like Home Depot reported a drop in sales. The company's CEO said it's due to higher interest rates and economic uncertainty. Now, if you're considering buying a home, another report out today could help you decide. It gives the latest information on mortgage rates, and the update follows yesterday's good news about an inflation milestone. That's from a report that touches on home prices. The new numbers have many analysts sounding hopeful about housing. Take a look at this.
We're moving in the right direction on inflation and doing so with some momentum.
Today's report on mortgage rates offers new insight for prospective home buyers, especially when paired with yesterday's good news about inflation.
You get mortgage rates being so high because inflation rose and the Fed had to raise interest rates.
Now inflation is cooling. Yesterday's CPI report shows less than 3% growth for the first time since March of 2021. Analysts say that means the Federal Reserve is likely to reduce interest rates at its next meeting. Such cuts often lower mortgage rates, and even expectations of them can have an effect.
Know that borrowing rates are going to come down 6 months from now, a year from now.
Of course, mortgage rates are different than housing prices, and those have been stubbornly high. The CPI report shows they rose 0.4% from June to July and more than 5% over a year. Still, analysts say home buying and renting costs can lag behind other inflation improvements. Many see good news for home buyers down the line.
That house that you may have had your eye on is probably going to become a little more affordable.
The inflation crisis is now behind us.
And the FTC is ramping up its fight against fake online reviews. It will now directly enforce a ban against anyone who breaks its rules. Here's the story.
The FTC has announced final rules on fake reviews as it ramps up efforts to stop them. The rules prohibit buying reviews, insider reviews, reviewer suppression, and buying fake social media followers.
It's great because there's so many people that were playing games.
Phil Masiello teaches people how to grow online businesses. He says fake negative reviews have been a problem for his clients.
We get redirected from growing businesses to having to combat all this negative stuff and get it taken off, spending time communicating with Google, spending time communicating with Amazon, taking screenshots and doing all that. I mean, it's weeks and weeks and weeks worth of work.
FTC Chair Lina Khan says that fake reviews not only waste people's time and money, they divert business away from honest competitors. Her new rules allow the FTC to directly seek civil penalties against violators. In the past, it would have gone through the Justice Department. Perpetrators will be fined for every fake review, which means the fines could really stack up. Online review sites praised the news.
I'm very much glad and happy that FTC finally made the ruling to ban fake reviews.
Podolsky runs a website where consumers can comment on businesses. He expects fewer fake reviews on his site after this news.
We, as a company, have built instruments to try to weed them out electronically, as well as through human moderation. We do everything possible in our power to remove that fake component.
Podolsky says he's glad the government is also stepping in to fight the fake reviews. He's worked with the FTC in the past, giving them data such as names, emails, and numbers when it was investigating fake reviews. And he's happy to help the commission going forward.
And Vice President Kamala Harris is expected to call for a federal ban on price gouging in an effort to lower grocery prices. The Democratic presidential nominee is expected to unveil the details in her first economic policy speech in Raleigh, North Carolina tomorrow. The proposal is part of Harris's effort to prevent corporations in the food and grocery industries from hiking up prices. The Harris campaign says Friday's speech is a small part of a larger plan she will roll out to tackle high costs and inflation. Harris is also expected to draw a contrast between her and former President Donald Trump's economic agenda. And now joining us to discuss the expected plan is Vice Gin. He's the former Office of Management and Budget Chief Economist and President of Gin Economic Consulting. Vance, how are you doing today?
Hey, Don, how's it going?
I'm doing good, Vance. Let me ask you this. Price caps will be a new approach for the American government. Are there any examples of where they've been used elsewhere? Can you tell us that?
No, I mean, this is really a terrible idea to put price caps in place, whether it's a price ceiling or a price floor. What that does is it distorts the marketplace. And when you look at food and groceries, something that's so important for American households across the economy, this is something that we don't need shortages in or rationing or other things. We really need to allow for the pricing mechanism to work. Oftentimes what is talked about from Kamala Harris and others is what's called price gouging. But I think that's more of a political term, not an economic term, because really what comes in the marketplace is where consumers want to buy something at a certain price and producers want to provide it at a certain price. That's what we want to look at. And instead, we should be looking at deregulating, finding ways to get government out of the way instead of putting more government in place like price controls, which haven't worked throughout history.
But let me ask you, in your opinion, do you feel like there's any corporations out there who may have raised prices needlessly?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why they raise prices for food and groceries and other things, and some will call it greedflation, if you will, right? But I think that's a misnomer. What you really see is that we have general level of prices and inflation that's going up, that's driven by Congress's excessive government spending and the increases in the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, putting too much money, chasing too few goods. You get rapid inflation, and that's what we're seeing also with food and grocery prices in general. And so instead of trying to put in these large draconian policies by government, we should be finding ways to get government out of the way, because if not, we're going to end up with worse problems in the process.
Okay, let me point this out. California recently put a price cap on insurance premiums, and later many insurance providers left the state. I wonder if there's something to learn from this.
Yeah, I think that there are lessons to be learned when you think about price caps and how this can distort the marketplace from whenever we had the price caps back in the 1970s, even in the 1980s, especially 1970s. Nixon's price and wage controls really put a lot of rationing when it came to gas prices and everything else. And now if we're trying to redo this, that would not be a good situation. Price controls, Don, are really what they do more in Soviet Russia or in Venezuela or even in China. There's a lot of price caps. That's not what we need in America. We need to allow for the market process to work to bring about the best prices, because if not, I'm worried that we'll end up with less food, more shortages in the process, and that will be worse for Americans than just a little bit of higher prices. And the other thing here, though, is that if the vice president Kamala Harris thinks that the government should have done something more, why haven't they done anything over the last 4 years? She's already been in office this time. Why would a policy of price controls be something they'd want to do now and think that that would solve the problem somehow? I think this is really a step in the wrong direction, and it's something that should not be done by the federal government, whether it be Kamala Harris or anyone else.
So what should the Vice President Kamala Harris do in terms of wanting to lower grocery prices and other prices? What does she need to do?
Yeah, I mean, I think things that should be looked at instead are reducing government spending so that way we're not running massive deficits that's contributing to the inflationary problems in general. Also looking at finding ways to remove subsidies and tax breaks for a lot of the farming industry and others that are out there, but also look at the rules and regulations that are put in place by the FDA, by OSHA, and other sort of federal regulations that raise the price for food and groceries when we go to the store. If we look at some more of those things, I think that would help to remove the barriers that are keeping prices higher than otherwise, and would be better off for consumers and producers in the marketplace.
All right, Vance, that's all the time we have for you today. I appreciate you joining us. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And EV fires have sparked concern in South Korea after several high-profile fires. The Korean government now wants to know who is making the batteries for the nation's electric vehicles. We don't have access to this type of information in the United States. NTD Sean Marshall has more on that.
Given the risk of fire, should EV manufacturers be forced to disclose the factories that make their car batteries? In South Korea, the government is now asking car makers to voluntarily disclose that information to lower consumer fears. An EV caught fire not long ago in a major city, ripping through a parking lot and damaging hundreds of cars.
I guess in Korea, it's actually, it's a term that I've heard 3 times now while I was doing research. EV phobia.
EV phobia, fear of electric vehicles. The South Korean government seeking to dispel such phobia recently.
And now we have 2 back-to-back fires in South Korea happening both in parking garages with 2 EVs from 2 different companies that were parked not plugged in, and thermal runaway, which is just when the temperature gets so high in the batteries, even just passively, they're always activated.
The head of Mercedes-Benz on Wednesday in South Korea met with residents of the apartment complex where the fire took place. It's not easy to find the statistics on the causes of EV-related fires. From 2010 to 2024, 51% of fire-related incidents have an unknown cause, primarily because it was not investigated according to EV FireSafe. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration collects data on fatal traffic crashes, but cannot identify whether a fire was due to an electric vehicle battery.
Do certain laws need to be passed? And fire departments even recommend that people don't park their cars in their garage at home, and people are parking them in parking garages, which kind of leaves them available for really big potential insurance claims, and even the manufacturers are on the hook too. You know, how do they handle that?
The National Center for Statistics and Analysis did not respond back with EV battery fire information in time for broadcast. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
And before I go, quick mention on markets. All green down on Wall Street today. The Nasdaq posting its 6th straight day of gains. It's up 0.2%, and the S&P 500 up 1.6%. The Dow Jones up over 500 points, which is 1.4%. Ulta Beauty rising over 11% after it was revealed that Warren Buffett has taken a stake in the company. And with that, that's all the stories that I have for you guys today. Chris, Fiona, back to you guys.
Don, it's always good to have you. Before you go, we talked about Kamala Harris's approach to rising prices, putting these price caps in place potentially. Donald Trump, on the other hand, has talked about increasing domestic oil production to address prices and all kinds of other things. I mean, he's talking about opening an oil reserve in Alaska.
Yeah, Harris's campaign has talked about companies raising prices on items needlessly. So earlier today, I talked to a finance professor who said that if that were the case, then why can't companies just raise prices anytime they want, right? Why are we seeing this now and not at an earlier time, like 2019 or another date?
Right, it's interesting. A lot of questions, and it'll be curious to see what she actually does propose in terms of policy there.
Yep, and I'm sure we'll cover it.
Cool. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.